covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, welcome to the program. Your host today, Tom Fallbush, and I'm going to have Bob Scott on with us in a minute. We're having some technical difficulties, but we'll have him on with us in a moment. But, you know, I wanted to continue our theme of what we were discussing over the past few weeks. And, of course, I do the Thursday program, right? And so I generally have a few themes that I focus in on, one being, you know, immigration and just how we're going to deal with that here locally and just what that's looking like. Also just pushing back on the woke agenda, and then also just to keep an eye on the general state of being of the left, of just where they are, especially the far left, the radical left, the militant left, the gay race communist left, right? You know, the people that are just intent on some sort of Marxist revolution in this country, and you may ask, well, who are those people? Well, I mean, you got Antifa, right? And that's a good example, somebody like that. Or you have people that are, that are just unhinged, that are wanting to show up at all these crazy protests. And of course, we just had the No Kings protest a couple of weeks ago, and there's some interesting fallout from that. There's now going to be another protest that's on November 5th, and it is going to be a rally in D.C., and we're going to play you some clips here in a minute when we have Bob on with us. But basically, people are asking folks to show up and surround the White House, surround the Supreme Court, and surround the state or the U.S. Capitol and just not leave until the Trump administration leaves office. That's what they're planning, November 5th, like this weekend. You know, is it next weekend? Next weekend. So, yeah. Now, if the right was doing that, what would they say? Oh, you're insurrectionist. You're just an insurrectionist. Look at you. You're surrounding the Capitol. You know, what is it, January 6th? You know, the whole insurrection theme. But no, the left is openly calling for this. So where you could say the January 6th thing, the whole inauguration, the vote in the U.S. Capitol for the presidency in 2020, that was just kind of a spontaneous riot that got out of control. People didn't show up, and there wasn't a planned sort of a agenda of we're going to do this, we're going to surround, we're going to make sure they succumb to our will, and we are going to not leave until the government falls. No one on the right said that. No one on the right said that. It was just a riot that really was fomented a lot by the feds. A lot of evidence of that now, that there's a lot of federal agents in that crowd that were agitating, and just a lot of chaos, confusion that day, and it's tragic in many ways, but it wasn't an insurrection. Well, this on November 5th, they're calling for an insurrection. I don't know what do you call that? Okay, they're saying, okay, we're going to non-violently. Okay, they're calling it non-violently. Let's all show up in D.C. and we're going to surround the White House, surround the Capitol, surround the Supreme Court, and we're not going to leave until we run the Trump administration out of town. Okay? I mean, what do you call that? They're basically asking for the overthrow of a legitimate government, legitimately elected government. The United States are asking for that to happen on November 5th. So I say all this, and we're going to unpack this further. The left is not defeated. They're still as unhinged as ever. They're more unhinged because they've lost power, and this is what they're doing. They're going to try to do this color revolution, this protest movement that turns into what they hope to be a change in government. And that's real. It's active. You got to be aware of it, and we're going to be following it because it's happening. We'll be right back with Bob Scott, and we'll talk more about this after the break.
Online at kyvoice.org.
Okay. Welcome back to the program. So, so Bob, we've got some issues here. We've got the left, the far left, is going to ask for a revolution in a sense. They're on November 5th. And matter of fact, I'm going to try to pull up a couple of articles on this, and that you sent me this morning. Hopefully, we can play it. And let's see if Mr. Producer can get this on the air. But anyway, so basically, the left is calling for just a revolution, just an outright protest that is demanding a. Well, here we go. Let me just use their words here. So, Mr. Producer, we're going to play this clip. Okay, we have some sound issues. We're going to start this over again one more second. So here we go.
Make history!
Make history!
As beautiful as right.
November 5th!
Flood D.C.
Flood D.C.
Together we can.
Together we can.
Make history!
Make history!
As beautiful as righteous as these protests will be today, on their own they are not enough. Because fascism, and that's what we're facing, fascism does not yield to outrage alone. We have a plan. It begins November 5th, right here in D.C., when we flood this city with nonviolent protests, starting at 11 a.m. on the National Mall. And we kick off a nonviolent, sustained, and growing movement of millions and millions that comes back again and again and does not stop until we drive Trump from power. This is possible. It is possible to drive out Trump. This is possible not just because we are the majority, though that matters. It's also possible because this country is deeply divided from the top to the bottom. Now, we can come at this from different perspectives, but it matters that there is opposition to him within the halls of power. But right now, these forces opposed to Trump are overwhelmed, and they're on the defensive. But that can change. But that can only change. That will only change. They will only be compelled and enabled to play the role they need to play in the removal of Trump from office if there is the kind of nonviolent, massive political earthquake from below that we can bring, that only the people can bring. Let's get organized, because together we can change the course of history. Trump must go now!
Trump must go now!
Trump must go now!
Trump must go now!
November 5th!
November 5th!
Flood D.C.
Flood D.C.
Together we can.
Together we can.
Make history.
We're going to stop it there. So I think you get the gist of it here. So Bob, I think you're with me now.
Yeah.
And so there we go. That's just one clip. There's a few others I'm going to play in a minute as well. But this is just a continuation of the whole No Kings movement, and it's now called Flood DC.
Yeah.
And so is this not an insurrection? Are they not actually calling for an insurrection?
In my mind, it's treasonous and definitely an insurrection, because last time I checked, Tom, the American people did speak last November the 5th when Donald J. Trump got elected overwhelmingly. He carried every swing state. He won the popular vote. These are just people that are deliberately trying to bring an insurrection in our country. That's exactly what happened, what they accused Trump of doing on January 6th, 5 years ago. And in fact, they're doing exactly what they were accusing him of doing. And it's I tell you what, there's another video. I don't know if we're going to be able to play it today or not, but you saw behind the scenes organizing meeting going on with these insurrectionists, and that's what I'm going to refer to them as.
Right.
making plans to come out and do whatever they can to disrupt our government. Now, I'll be happy to see if it's peaceful, but I will also be surprised if it's not. I can tell you if it's not, I can promise you this: it's not because of the right that's doing it. It is because of these insurrectionists that'll be doing it.
That's exactly right. And so, and I'm trying to play that video. We've got it. I need to get a different Instagram login to make that work. But exactly, that was in that video. You basically see an organizer just saying, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to surround the Capitol. We're going to surround the White House. We're going to surround the Supreme Court, and we're not leaving until Trump's out of office." And I just keep repeating that because I can't even believe they're saying it. I keep so.
Well, they're saying the quiet part out loud is what they're
exactly
doing.
Right. That's exactly right.
And it's such a sham. Is the only way I could put it. And I don't know if you want to talk about what's getting ready to happen with regard to the government shutdown, but also the SNAP benefits.
That's right. That plays into this as well.
How coincidental that the SNAP benefits are going to be cut off potentially November the 1st. And then they're going to have this rally on the 5th.
That's right.
Gee, color me surprised.
That's right. Yeah. And so all these folks that are, let me just say it this way. A lot of the folks that are on SNAP benefits are probably not the most politically attuned or politically astute folks. They don't pay attention. They're probably low information voters, but they suddenly pay attention when something like that goes on. And so the messaging that's out during a moment like that, the first messaging that gets to them, that kind of explains to them what's happening, is what they'll likely believe. And so yes, you're right. So having a big event on that day, within the week that they're having trouble trying to buy groceries, it's evil genius, the evil genius to do this sort of thing. Mr. Producer, I'm going to pull up this article real quick. This is from the Jacobin, right? The Jacobin is a far left online magazine, and this is what Eric Blank is one of the key folks in this No Kings and far left movement, and he wrote an article after No Kings. It's time to escalate, right? And so after the massive No Kings protests, we need bigger, more disruptive, more nonviolent campaigns that can go viral and peel away Trump's pillars of support. And of course, last week, Bob, you and I talked about just the color revolution, right? And we can go back to Bob, Mr. Producer, but we had a discussion of just what a color revolution is, right? And I'll just, for folks that are just tuning in, this is a technique that was developed by the CIA, basically, right? And so it's developed to help overthrow governments, hostile governments, and but doing it non-violently and doing it in a way where it can topple a authoritarian regime. So they did this in Serbia, they did this in Ukraine, they did this in Libya. And so what it basically is you go in and you artificially prop up organic or non-organic protest where they would look organic. And so you basically George Soros money, you go in and give it to all the No Kings protesters, print their signs for them. So you get protests going. Then you get the all these pillars of government that are seen as what basically gives the government legitimacy, like the academia, the journalism, the business community. You get all these communities to start questioning and challenging the authority of the government, and eventually the government just falls because they no longer have control. And it's just a corrosive bottom up overthrow of a government, but it can be done nonviolently. And so the folks that orchestrated those sort of color revolutions were with USAID. We closed USAID. The Trump administration closed USAID. So all those guys are out of work, and now they're going to work doing this. They're trying to do a color revolution in the U.S. So Bob, we got about a minute and a half left. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're spot on, Tom, because essentially they have lost. They've lost the support of most normal Americans that have a brain between their two ears that can sit and listen. I mean, you even got people, such as John Fetterman, who initially when he first came in, I thought he was some kind of wacko, but he's now the voice of reason, within the Democratic Party. And when you got people like him that's saying, hey, this is wrong. You're doing harm to Americans. I've got a lot of friends and family members that are on the right, and they're not Nazis. They're not some kind of wacko, fringe, extreme right people. And you've got him speaking out against it, and Bill Maher's another one. I mean, it's lining up more and more, even to a point now we're even seeing, shockingly, in some mainstream media like MSNBC, you've got some people on there that's actually questioning, the narrative, and in Democrats specifically, and saying you are the ones that the reason the government shut down now.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, and I hope that message sinks in with the American people, that the reason the shutdown is happening is the left. It is the Democrats. It's the Schumer shutdown. And folks that are watching this program probably understand that, but the average low-information voter probably doesn't understand that yet, and so they need to. We'll be right back, Bob. We're going to continue this conversation about the insurrection.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to the program. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, and my co-host, Bob Scott, and we are still drilling into this topic of the left-wing insurrection, the coming color revolution, the pushback on the Trump administration, the far left's insistence that they take things to the mat here, and where they can Bob, it's like to the point where the country can no longer have this understanding that you can let the other side win, and it's not an existential threat to your existence. It's just they have a different view of the world, and yet we still, it used to be we agree on some of the fundamental things. We agree on democracy, a Republican form of government. We agree on the rule of law, free speech, and things that this America was founded on, that we all agreed on. So as long as both sides could kind of agree to on those topics, they could agree to disagree on other things, and they would allow the other side to have power, and if they won an election fairly, and but we're now at a point where we're so polarized, we're so extreme, the worldviews have diverged so radically. And it's kind of odd, Bob, because it's not like they're so I mean, we've had left-wing, far-left thinking, in this country for probably 100 years. It's more heightened in the past, 30, 40 years. But it's not like this stuff has never been around. It's just now we're so polarized. Maybe it's social media. I don't know. Maybe it's just a secularization of the country where we no longer have a faith, and so the left has adopted this new faith of Marxism, and it's militant, and it's violent in its nature, and so this is just the result. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons for this, but we're in a key moment where I don't think the right can lose. We can't. Well, I'm sorry. We can't afford to lose, right? We cannot afford to lose another election, because we know exactly what they're going to do to us if they win, because they were doing it under the Biden administration. Yeah. And so, anyway, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit more quiet, quiet the last time around. But I think at the heart of this, Tom, it centers around Trump derangement syndrome. That these folks, and let's face it. I mean, Donald Trump is very much an inflammatory type person. I didn't like him at first when he popped on the scene. In fact, when he ran for president in 2016, he was probably my number 6th or 7th choice, as far as the people that were being brought forward. But then I kind of woke up and saw, wait a minute, this guy is speaking truth to power, like we've never heard before. I didn't necessarily totally agree with the way he was doing it a lot of times, but he, for the most part, lived up to everything he said he was going to do as far as trying to dismantle the deep state, if you will. And it's kind of funny. It isn't funny, but we look at what's going on with the Democrat-led government shutdown that's happening. They're kind of helping to bring about their own demise by doing that. I'm not sure where they think this is going to end up, but the American people has woken up, and they, I think, are seeing the lies that was told during the Biden administration, and I don't think they're going to stand for it. And by the way, folks, if you're just tuning in, we'd love to hear your comments. You can text us at 502-571-0970. Again, that text line number is 502-571-0970. Or if you just want to give to Kentucky's Voice, we can tell you how important you're giving to really the only conservative voice that's getting out and speaking truth to the state of Kentucky. You just basically dial that or punch in that same number, 502-571-0970. My baby boomer was coming out in me. I could start to say dial, but punch that in and then type in the words give, G-I-V-E.
The rotary phones. So, yeah. Bob, I've got this clip I wanted to play of this organizer, and so let's Mr. Producer.
Yeah, that's one I think we were talking about earlier. Yeah, it's really powerful.
November 5th in Washington, D.C., the largest sustained protest in Washington, D.C.'s history. This needs to be what happens right now. We're organizing millions of people to get to Washington, D.C., stand and surround the White House, surround the Capitol building, surround the illegitimate fascist-packed Supreme Court, and not stop until the Trump regime is driven from power.
Sounds like he's planning an insurrection, doesn't it? We're going to surround these symbols of power and demand the removal of the current guy and not wait for elections, and we don't care about the courts. That don't sound good.
Trump must go now. Again, we cannot wait for election cycles, politicians, or the Supreme Court. We need to rise up into our millions right now, beginning on November 5th. Get to Washington, D.C. if you can. Come organize with us. We're chartering a plane to get as many people there as we can. If you can't organize with us, support our organization so we can send as many people that we can to get to Washington, D.C. We're a nationwide organization. We have coalitions all over the country. So we need to stand behind this one simple demand. Again, it's very simple. Trump must go now. The fall of the fascist Trump regime begins on November 5th, 2025.
One of the biggest lessons we've learned over the last few years is not to be a Karen, not to be that person that's pointing fingers. On the other hand, when someone says they want to kick the president and all those people out and replace them without elections, I think it's time to start pointing.
You're watching the
So there we go. So we're dealing. There we go. Right from their mouth. And Bob, it seems like it's a. It seems like it's a situation where the left is. They only have so many cards to play now. They've lost power, political power. And so they're going through their playbook, and they're now into the break glass in case of emergency sort of mode.
Correct.
And now it's okay. How do we really, grab the reins of control, grab the attention of the public again? Well, it's to create a crisis. A crisis where the country shuts down, or we somehow create so much of a kerfuffle that the government or the Trump administration caves to something, and so that's where we're at. So it's no, so like I said earlier, we're not in this moment where we can just agree to let the other side govern while you coalesce your opinions and your policy positions again, and try to convince the American public and the next go around that you should be elected. they're forget that. They just, it's all about raw power to them now. They just want control of the government, and they're going to shut the country down. They'll surround the White House, shut D.C. down, and in order to make that happen. This is a revolutionary spirit. This is a Marxist revolutionary mindset, and that's who they are. They're showing. That's one good thing about the Trump administration. I think you'll agree with me. He's exposed what people really are, from the media to the deep state, to the swamp, to all the creeps at the FBI and the intelligence communities, and so now we're seeing what the left really is. They're just really communist at heart, and they're going to use a communist insurgency here to try.
I think it's the radicalized part of that really has taken over. I still do think it's the minority in the Democratic Party, but the minority has they've taken power, they've consumed it, and they've become the majority, at least the majority voice.
That's right.
In that party. And I think everyday Kentuckians that still call themselves Democrats still haven't woken up to that fact. And, you know, whether they've completely will, I don't know. But it is an absolute hijacking of the party of John F. Kennedy. And it's time. We're seeing what's going on in New York City right now, about ready to elect a Marxist. Whoever thought that would happen after 9/11, but they're about ready to do it. Yeah. We need to be praying and also speaking out like Charlie Kirk did, and standing for the truth.
Yeah, in every revolution and every sort of major political change in a country, it's never the majority that makes the difference. It's the radical minority who has the will to create change. It's usually people have studied this. It's usually
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, back on Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, with Bob Scott, and I missed the countdown to the last segment, so I'm going to finish my point there. I was saying that in revolutions, especially left-wing Marxist revolutions, it's never the majority that pulls this off. It's usually a minority.
That's a historical fact, Tom.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
It's the Bolsheviks. It's the small little contingent of Bolsheviks that took over Russia. It was you go to every communist revolution.
Now in China.
Now in China, you look at Pol Pot. They actually have a number of 3.5%. If you can get 3.5% of a country to agree to move the agenda on any subject, it will move. That's all you need. So the left has that. They've got a core 20% of the country that are far left.
Absolutely.
Now you've got a lot of other Democrats, all these baby boomer Democrats that just don't like Trump because they remind them of their ex-husband. They're just following those folks. But that's what we've got. We've got this revolution that's trying to occur, and Trump is the counter-revolution. So that's just so exciting about this. So Trump is the counter, because we had a Marxist revolution put upon us over the past 10 years. The whole wokeism stuff, the whole Biden administration, the cancellation culture, all the stuff was a Marxist revolution. That was and it was
100%.
Authoritarian. So this is a counter-revolution, and just in the tradition of a pure anti-communist counter-revolution. So anyway, so that's where we're at. Last thought on this, Bob. We'll go into another topic. But
no, it's again, you're spot on in breaking it down into the simplest terms. We are at war. Right now, there is a cultural war going on right now. We've talked last several days on my show when I've done it myself, and I've had two state legislators from Kentucky on, John Hodgson and Bill Wesley. We were talking about China, and the very real fact, some of the good news, there's this good news coming out of this. CBS 60 Minutes actually did a story on the threat of China, to America, and how they've been going into municipal water systems in our country, doing it, of course, online.
Yep.
And basically putting a back door in there in the event, they think, in the event that some kind of conflict or war broke out with China, if they could go in and actually do some things that would cause chemicals to be spilled into hundreds of municipal water systems around the country, that would kill a lot of people. It seems very sci-fi and crazy, but guess what? It's being done,
Sure.
and now they are, I'm hoping, and it does appear that the National Security Administration is taking steps to shore that up. But if we think that we're not living in serious times, I've got some news for you. These are as serious, dead serious as it can get.
It is, and a lot of these protests, these color revolution efforts are funded by the Chinese government, are funded by
Correct.
foreign entities.
That's
right?
right.
And so, and that's not just
Well, they fund a
conspiracy
lot of our
theory, that's-
debt too, so why not? That's
Yeah, right, exactly, and they're rooting for this kind of stuff. So,
yeah, that's right.
So anyway, okay, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We're going to switch to another topic, which is in Kentucky, we have both Senator Mitch McConnell and Senator Rand Paul voting against Donald Trump, voting against his tariffs to his Canadian tariff, basically the tariffs on Canada. So it's so in other words, Trump wants to initiate tariffs on Canadian imports in order to pressure them to come to the table on a new economic deal, and also just to change their way of behaving. You want to talk about a Marxist revolution. Canada is basically a Marxist government at this point. They're just they're going after conservatives and Christians and free speech.
That's
and,
right.
and it's really a weird place. And so it's no longer just your nice Canadian neighbors up north. It's an authoritarian state. And so Trump has every right to go in and say, you need to get your act straight. So, Mr. Producer, you can pull this article up, but this is 4 Senate Republicans voted to rebuke Trump in the midst of the Canadian tariff spat, and of course, Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell was doing that. Now, I think one of the reasonings is Canadians have said, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to respond by pulling off all the liquor from all the American whiskey, all the American bourbon off our shelves. And so my guess is you've got a bunch of bourbon moguls here in the state that have called Paul and McConnell and said, remember, we gave you a bunch of money to win this election. Remember the Brown Foreman, we wrote you this big check here. And so you better push back. And know this, Paul and McConnell, it's just symbolic because, just because this goes down in the Senate doesn't mean that the House is going to accept it. So they know the House is going to reject this. So it's just going to be, it's a meaningless vote in a lot of ways. So it's just symbolic, but still, we got a coup from Kentucky, a coup going on in Kentucky in MAGA world. And that's, anyway, Bob, what are your thoughts on that?
No, and I think they're both coming at it from different angles. Of course, it's well known Rand Paul is like his daddy, more of a libertarian who, and I got to say this, I'm not saying this to defend him necessarily, but he's always had a stated position where he doesn't think tariffs are the answer.
Right.
I think that's just him.
Yeah, he's a libertarian. He's for free trader, and I get it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then now McConnell, I think he's doing what could be, he might be getting some of the phone calls from the bourbon whiskey lobbyists,
Right.
alcohol lobbyists in our country. But I think at the heart with regard to Mitch, I think it's well noted that he absolutely despises Trump.
Yeah. With Mitch, a lot of it's personal.
Yeah, it is. It's completely, and that's frustrating to me, and has been for a long time. This is where you need a time to rise above, really like what we see going on in Congress right now with this Democrat shutdown that's happened. They haven't changed anything as far as the Republicans with regard to the continuing resolution to keep the government open so they can pay the bills. That's been the same thing. Guess what? The Democrats have agreed to for the last, I believe, 12 votes anyway.
Yeah.
So that this is not anything new.
Right.
It's just that they're trying, the far left masters of the Democratic Party are deliberately trying to create confusion and chaos. You know, you said at the top of the show, Tom, that this is a chaos situation, because the more chaos that they can get and bring out, the more that they feel that they're going to be able to drive a wedge and get some control. You know,
I'm glad you said that. You sent me a clip earlier I want to play that is very poignant, and it shows the Democrats and their attitude about this shutdown. So we'll play it real quick.
There will be, families that are going to suffer, but it is one of the few leveraged times we have.
Without a resolution to this shutdown, SNAP benefits could come to a halt on November 1st.
We reopen the government, and we lose our leverage.
Roughly 42 million people are at risk of losing critical food assistance.
Frankly, this is our only moment of leverage.
Families are headed into a bleak holiday season, possibly with no government food assistance because of the federal shutdown.
More leverage.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said this week, quote, every day gets better for Democrats the longer the shutdown goes on. How is every day getting better, as Chuck Schumer said?
I don't think this is better for anybody.
And the last Democrat on there, it was interesting. He said it was the only voice of truth in that. I don't think this is better for anybody. And the other ones, they were speaking truth too. You know, you had Schumer and some of the other Democrat leadership making this I know the female was, and again, her name eludes me right now, but she's I want to say the House Minority Whip.
Yeah.
So these are leaders in Congress, Democrat leaders.
Yeah.
They're saying this is all about leverage.
Leverage. This is a political tactic.
Control.
They're playing hardball.
It's
a political
control.
tactic to try and using the American people as a pawn.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, do they care that people, real people are going to be harmed?
No.
Everyday people, as far as receiving their SNAP benefits, do they care about that? Do they care that the child care is going to be potentially affected? No. Yeah. No, they don't give a rat's rear end.
That's right.
About and I've said this for a while, about the common everyday man. All they care about is having power and maintaining power. That's it in a nutshell.
Exactly right. Yeah, and the American people will pay the price for that, because their scheme to gain more power. It's American people are going to be the pawns in that scheme, and they don't care. They don't care who gets hurt, and hopefully that message is getting out. I mean, obviously, people in the conservative movement like you and I, we understand this, but in the past, these shutdowns have generally worked against Republicans, because for whatever reason, the news media or whatever's been the reason that the public would blame the Republicans at the end of the day, because usually it was the Republicans using it as a tactic against a Democratic president. And so now it's an opposite dynamic here. It's
not happening this time, though. I said it earlier, and we saw in those clips, or the clip we just played, they were getting questioned and really put on the hot seat by
the liberal media. That's
media.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, I saw Jake Tapper come down pretty hard on. It was one of the Democrat leaders.
He challenged
really
him. He said, "Can you actually say? I mean, what you're saying that you're not doing this?" And I guess they like their playbook. If they tell a lie long enough, that people are going to finally believe their lie. But it ain't going to work this time. I don't believe it is.
It's not at all. So anyway, so Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, playing some games in MAGA country, and then we've got the shutdown, and it's yet to be seen how this is going to play out. But I think November 5th, when this D.C. protest kicks off, like you said,
I want to talk more about that in the next
segment,
Tom, because I have some concerns. Let's talk about that in the next segment.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll be right back. I also want to remind you, this is a listener-supported program, right? That we cannot do Kentucky's Voice. We cannot cover Kentucky politics and news from a conservative perspective without your support. So you can text 5710970. We'll show you how to support us. We'll be right back.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to the program.
The 1 year anniversary.
Bob and I have been
of Trump's
talking all day
election.
about the November 5th D.C. protest. They're trying to run Donald Trump out of office with a giant protest in D.C. You thought we were focused on No Kings and but No Kings is just kind of a warm up to what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to do this focused protest in D.C. where they shut the city down and they. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me just use their own words here. We're going to play this clip, Mr. Producer, and this explains exactly what they want to do. And see if you would call this an insurrection.
November 5th, the 1 year anniversary of Trump's election, the fall of the Trump regime. November 5th, flood D.C. in non-violent protest, surrounds the White House, surrounds the Capitol, surround the illegitimate, fascist-packed Supreme Court, come back again and again, across the country, refuse to comply. This is our only chance to actually remove, to drive out this regime from power. November 5th must be the biggest, most determined, nonviolent mass mobilization and assembly in the Capitol in American history. Take this up. Make history.
There we go. Fascism. See, this is what you do to fascists, Bob. Fascists are, are evil, right? So what do you do to fascists? You run them out of power. They're illegitimate, and so that's why they keep using that word. Trump's a fascist because that just
they're projecting.
Justifies
it's called projection, and that's exactly who they are.
Exactly right.
That's exactly who they are.
Exactly right.
And I'm concerned, Tom. Really am concerned about where we find ourselves right now because I know we've talked about it several times before when we've been together, but I truly feel we are potentially on the brink of some type of civil war, the civil insurrection,
civil
is
strife. Well, we're in civil strife.
Yeah.
I think that there's
it's
levels
happening
of it.
on the left, but what I'm saying is I could see this easily bleeding over because you have Democratic leadership that's honestly pushing this, because that's the only way. And I'll say it again. That's the only way that they're going to win is by bringing chaos, into the situation. And I am praying that cooler heads will prevail, but simultaneously, they're attacking our very foundations, our very Constitution, that has made America what it is today. They're talking about. It was concerning to hear that they're going to go and surround the Supreme Court, and say that's in their mind been illegally packed by us, by the right. And again, bring down our whole system. That's what they want to do. That's what an anarchist, that's what a Marxist, that's what a communist, this is out of their playbook 101. We need to wake up to this and be willing and say, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. And as a Christian, the word talks about be wise as serpents, yet gentle as doves. And I think this is a time to be wise as a serpent.
Absolutely. And the reason I keep doing shows like this, Bob, and just so the viewers know, I really feel like that the average person that's voted for Trump or who's a conservative, they feel like that they've done their job and Trump's in office and everything's going to be taken care of. And we just need to sit back and watch the clips every night and watch how fun it is. But here's the issue. The left is going to escalate this to where it's uncomfortable for you. That's their whole point.
Correct.
They want to create a protest to where It shuts down D.C. They're going to start doing non-compliance sort of operations to where they're just going to stop doing things. Maybe they just shut down an industry or shut down a highway or a, just like in Europe, in France, you have these, they're well known for their protests where they just shut down things, and that's how they pressure the government. Well, that's the left. They're going to start doing this sort of thing. And so your life's going to be made very uncomfortable. So the reason we bring this up is to still your nerves here. So to get ready to stand up and know how to fight on this stuff, because this is not over. This whole
they're counting on that, Tom. They're counting
is
on
still growing, and it needs to come to a head, and we need to win it. But it's so just get ready. Don't lose the faith. We got to go for the long run here. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, no, they're counting on that very thing. They're counting that typically. Most people on our side of the fence are peace-loving people,
That's right.
and we'll stand on the side. We might disagree with it, and certainly might go out and protest it, but they're counting on us to really not do anything to interject ourselves into it. But now we have to, and really that first major shot, in my opinion, and no pun intended whatsoever, happened on September 10th, this year. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
That's right.
And it was a political assassination, that happened.
Absolutely.
And the foremost leader, in my opinion, of the young conservative voice, and I think that's probably going to be hard to argue, in our country, was brutally taken out.
Yeah. A future president is what he was. He
would
president.
have absolutely been president, and very well said, because and they knew that, and at the end of the day, that's the only thing Marxist, communist, totalitarians understand is, at the end of the day, is brute force, killing, murder.
That's right.
Again, we don't want to have to go into a history lesson here, but we know every Marxist, communist regime has always, without exception, resulted in the deaths of millions of people.
That's right. That's right, because they're trying to create heaven on earth. They're trying to create utopia in it, and there's a few people in the way. But if we just eliminate these few people, if we just push these people out of the way, we can have heaven on earth. And if we just give it another 5 years or another plan, another 5-year plan or whatever, we can have this utopia. And it's just dark and twisted, and it's evil, and that's what we're dealing with, folks. I know you want to go back to the game. I know you want to go back to grilling and just chilling out and watching Netflix. But we're here to tell you this is not going away.
Well, let me say this: if they get their way, you won't have any of that other stuff.
That's right. That's right.
You won't have all the things that makes America so unique, so special. The American things, that the American way of life, that will be gone. That will be vaporized.
That's right. Exactly right. Well said. So anyway, Bob, I got a few minutes left. We haven't talked about this yet. I want to get your opinion. And I want to share a bit of my opinion on the Thomas Massie situation. We now have a Trump-supported challenger in his primary. And so in Thomas Massie, if you don't know who he is, he's a congressman in the Northern District of Kentucky, very outspoken. He's voted against Trump a whole lot of times, but he's a conservative Republican generally. And
he's voted with him on a lot of issues too. But yeah, you're right.
Exactly right. Yeah,
enough to be a thorn in his side. I know I know Thomas very well.
Yeah.
I know the gentleman that's thrown his name into the fight, Ed Galrain. In fact, honestly, he's a former Navy SEAL, and I thank him for his service. I worked with him on a couple of Navy SEAL fundraisers, along with Aaron Reed, who's also was a Navy SEAL.
Right, yeah, he ran against Aaron Reed, and
he ran against Aaron Reed at the 11:59th hour. He was interjected, and he was strongly supported by establishment Republicans, including folks from the McConnell campaign, McConnell people, if you will, that got behind him because they perceived Aaron Reed as being too much of a liberty type. In other words, someone that wouldn't necessarily step in line with their total way of thinking.
Right.
And fortunately, Aaron did beat him. And that's my concern, quite frankly, with Ed Galrain, is I have zero doubt in my mind that if he somehow were to get elected into office, he would be a rubber stamp. you know, for whatever, not just Trump, but whatever.
Just establishment Republicanism. So
100%.
Yeah, at the same time, you know, Trump is not establishment Republicanism, and we've got Thomas Massie voting against him. And so, and a lot of it seems to be a little bit of TDS going on, because some of these things are like almost spiteful. It's like, why even vote? You're the only person voting against it. You're just making a point for you know. So I get it. He's kind of like Rand Paul. He has this libertarian streak to them and to him, and he's trying to make a point, I guess, about those policies. But I don't know. I kind of hand wring about Thomas Massie. I like his fight. I like his style sometimes, but I don't care for his, you know, his poking his finger in the Trump's eye as much as he's been doing it lately. And
well, I can tell you, Donald Trump doesn't appreciate it either.
Exactly,
you know?
right. Yeah.
But he's a breath of fresh air. He's somebody that we need. You don't want yes people all around you. And I'm kind of surprised a little bit that even, you know, Trump should know that. I mean, he's managed major corporations and businesses and been obviously very successful in that. And it's okay to have somebody that's given. I don't think Massie would be an issue if the Republicans had more of a majority in Congress than they do right now, which they did in Trump's first term.
Yeah.
And Massie was doing the same thing then that he's doing now, but now. Like you said, it's become personal, and I hate to see. We have gotten some texts.
Texts that come in, yeah.
Yeah, one was person says Rand Paul was also criticizing Trump's attacks on drug boats. Rand Paul is not a military strategist or an economist, which I, for the most part, agree with that statement.
That's right.
And I think, again, getting outside of your area of expertise, perhaps a little bit.
Paul does want to try to uphold the institution of Congress and as opposed to the executive branch. I think a lot of his critiques are that it's like Congress should have the right to vote on this. It should be our power. So a lot of it's kind of a power struggle between the two branches.
I get it, but sometimes we know that Barack Obama and many other presidents have acted outside. Basically taking people out without getting any declaration of war. And then the one final comment, I love this comment, term limits will solve a lot of these problems.
Yeah, with Rand Paul and McConnell.
And thank you for those comments, by the way,
folks. The thing about term limits, though, you have to have it across the entire country. You can't just have one state have term limits and every other state doesn't.
Correct.
Because then what would happen is you would get all these other states that have...
Well, all the blue states wouldn't have them, and all the red states...
Their senators, their congressmen have more seniority, more power over our state, and so it has to be a blanket thing or none at all. So,
yeah, that's right.
But anyway, so it's a challenge. Okay. Hey, Bob, great show today. Thanks for being on the show, guys.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be a permanent thing, by the way. Yeah, coming up.
Yeah, that's right. Be very wide-eyed about this and know that this fight is not over, and pray for the country. And because we need a resolution of this existential crisis where we're in. So we'll be back tomorrow on Kentucky's Voice.